Hey everybody, this is Tim Anderson, Programming Coordinator for the Florida Film Festival, and welcome to Shorts Program number 4, my literal favorite shorts program in the world, which is why I write the blurb for it every single year. So I'm really super duper excited that you guys have watched all of these films now, and you're seeing a chance, getting a chance to talk to the filmmakers, or hear the filmmakers talk about their movies during this Q&A session. I have no idea what I'm saying anymore because I've recorded so many of these, but I imagine that your life lives on Zoom much like mine does. So deal with it. Anyway, let's go ahead and open up the forum. Let me take a check-in to have each of these incredibly talented filmmakers introduce themselves, and we'll start with Trish. Hi, Trish, welcome.
Hi, I'm Trish Harnetiaux, and I directed and co-wrote You Wouldn't Understand. And thanks for watching it. Yeah. And I'm so glad to be here with all these talented filmmakers. I enjoyed all of them.
It's really exciting to get a chance to do this virtually, so I am happy that in the time of COVID we can get together. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Oh, yes, indeed. Thank you for having me. I am Andrew Betzer. I directed Important Police Shit, and I'm happy to be joining via Zoom. Thanks again for having me. I wish I could be in Florida, but you know how it goes.
We're excited to have you. Yeah, no, I understand. Look, most of us that are in Florida don't want to be in Florida either. So like, we feel you.
It sounds very nice right about now. Sorry.
Hi, Diana. Welcome.
Hi. I'm Diana Mantis, and I did Alone Again Naturally, which is my first short film.
First film ever?
First one ever.
Oh, we're going to have a lot to talk about then. Geez, wow. Julie Max.
Hi,
hey.
Hi, I'm Julie Pacino, and I directed Hard Work.
I'm Max. I wrote and starred in Hard Work.
And thanks for having us. Somehow our short film made it in a section with all these other amazing films, so we're just happy to be here.
Your film is incredible. It's a riot. I mean, we laughed our asses off. Like, we're not going to lie. Like, there's some stuff that we're going to get into on this thing that I'm terrified to know if it's true or not, really. So,
yeah.
It's probably all true. Ashley, last but certainly not least, welcome.
Hello, I'm Ashley Eakin. I'm the writer-director of the film Single. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you guys again, all of you, for joining us. This program, every year we sort of build our shorts programs to become more aggressively, I don't know, envelope pushing, or a little bit, you know, like out of the comfort zone of your general audience. And so what happens is that by the time you get to Shorts 4, we are at the peak of what we consider to be kind of filmmakers that are really have some incredibly interesting stuff to say and some incredibly unusual ways to say it. But I don't ever remember this being quite as comedy heavy a program as it is this year. And although some of that comedy is very awkward and uncomfortable, including in some very serious movies that have some moments that are very comedic, but also horrifyingly real. I guess I'll open up the question, talk a little bit to each one of you about your movies. And Matthew, of course, and Kat, feel free to jump in anytime. But once again, I'll start with Trish. And yeah, this movie's weird. I mean, this is exactly in our wheelhouse of weird shit that we are super into, which is that this film opens, it's a very nice, very calm, you know, picnic. Everybody is nice, seemingly normal. I mean, maybe it's a little too much picnic for one man, but all hell breaks loose in this short. And I guess, I mean, I don't really want to know exactly how it was conceived as much as I want to know how you kind of picked the tone of this movie to execute, because it's
it's a great question.
It's crazy.
So the two actors in the film, Jacob and Anthony, and I have been, you know, creating work together for like almost a decade, like all sorts of short form stuff. And I think that this film actually, we kind of hit the pinnacle, and it was this perfect blend of our sensibilities. Like, you know, my background is like an avant-garde theater, dark comedy writer, and Jacob comes from, you know, the comedy scene, and Anthony is like just a walking encyclopedia of film and was like raised in the entertainment industry. And I think that we all just were talking a lot about tone and a lot about Hitchcock and a lot about, classic movies and, the idea of like building tension and Monty Python. And it kind of was like this mix of tone that was the genesis for the story, honestly. And then we kind of built it in a way that hopefully embodies all of these influences, but also is kind of very uniquely its own journey.
Yeah, it's just a movie that we're like, we were kind of, obviously first we were shocked where it went, because we didn't know, we were like, what in the hell are we watching?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's fairly accurate, Kat, Matthew, that like, we were like, okay, all right, it's going somewhere, right? And then it went nowhere we ever would have dreamed.
Good.
But I love that it does kind of have this almost like weird, like Tarkovsky makes a Grey Poupon commercial thing.
Mm-hmm.
Horseradish.
It's really, yeah, well, there'll be more questions on this, I'm sure, coming up. I want to keep the comedy block, like, grouping together a little bit. So let me go to Julie and Max. And yeah, so it's obviously it's raunchy as hell, and it's a riot. And so this is definitely a genesis. But I mean, this is like, Max, you wrote in it, you star in the film. So like, I haven't personally been on an adult film set, so I don't know if you guys have. It feels very much real. And I definitely want to talk about that. And I definitely need to talk about this idea where this guy just drinks egg whites.
Well, the idea stemmed from when I was looking for jobs when I got to New York City, and I came across an ad that needed an assistant on adult film shoots. I wish that I had applied for that job, but I thought it was the most hilarious TV show idea. So I just started doing as much homework as I could to figure out what these PAs do on sets every day. I think the low rung on the totem pole thematic is really popular in any workplace. And I think that on a porn set, it's even more hilarious. And so in my research, as you'll see in the film, that is something that actually does happen.
All right. Okay. Is the egg whites a thing that happens?
Oh yeah.
I'm a little nauseous. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's a little nauseating.
It's what the job requires.
That's fair. We all have really bad parts of our jobs.
That's dedication, let me tell you.
I also kind of want to know a little bit about why you guys, the way you decided to do this is that you sort of allow, by not showing anything in explicit detail, you sort of take that almost horror movie trope of where the thing you don't see is so much worse than the thing that you do. So I want to talk a little bit about that decision also, because I think we build in our minds the worst possible scenario of everything that's happening, like just slightly off frame.
Yeah, we wanted to make this a film for families, so we obviously we couldn't get graphic with it. But no, I think it's always scarier or more uncomfortable when you can't see the thing that's happening. And for me, I really love playing with sound design, so we kind of pushed that to the limit, almost in a cartoonish way. We made it really sound over the top, and I think it was from the jump we knew we weren't going to be showing that, and it was fun to work with my team and figure out like what the most uncomfortable way we could do it without showing it would be. So sound design was where.
And where'd you get your co-lead actor who's so perfect for the role, the porn star? Where'd you find him?
That's Jason Dietz. He's a good friend of ours in New York City. So talented actor that's done a bunch of stuff. And we actually met him in the Broadway Show League softball community. So Max and I played on a team with him. And he's very, I'm not going to say he's similar to that in real life, because I don't feel like backhanded, but he is like, he's got this charisma, and so he was just the most natural fit, and his improv skills are ridiculous. So it was
really, not to break in, but I also played softball with Jason Dietz. I couldn't wait to tell you guys that in the Williamsburg League.
Oh my God!
In the Sunday League, that's a crazy
for like
league.
15 years. Like crazy. More on that later.
I love that.
There's a whole slow pitch softball culture in New York City that is fascinating and we should make a movie about someday. But that's a different.
Yes, we'll talk.
Yeah, it's like you guys hook up after this is over, and we'll see that we can say it conceived right here.
Yeah, but has Trish thought about casting him as a porn star?
I mean, I didn't even know he could do all that. So this has been a wild ride.
Guy's got such range.
Well, I say this in the kindest way possible, and I mean it really as a compliment. There was this great like Showtime series like in the early 2000s about Seymour Butts, who ran a porn company in the Valley, and this guy, he has the ultimate oily, greasy vibe of that character, like personified. It's ideal casting. Besides his comic timing, he just nails the look. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
So it's really wonderful casting. Well, I want to jump over to Ashley for a second. We've seen a lot of films just in the last couple of years that have talked to, that have really put a spotlight on representing disability on screen. And obviously this film we saw through Slam Dance, and it is so good. Like, it's the perfect worst dates, like first worst date sequence like ever. Like, have you seen the first worst date tweets? Like, this is like the king worst date tweet hashtag movie on earth. But your lead is, she's brilliant. So I want to know about finding her as much as I want to know about the decision to kind of tell this like sort of hilarious, like the worst meet cute ever.
Yeah. We found her, it's definitely a challenge finding people with disabilities that fit this character that you have in your head, because there's not a ton of people out there. So I do a lot of Instagram stalking.
Yeah.
Just people, and I hit them up and I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about acting? And luckily though, we found her through a proper casting director. My friend, who was my roommate at one point, knows kind of what I'm all about in disability representation. And so she'll kind of do these deep dives with me, really like reaching out to people, because that's what it takes to sometimes find these people. And she was the only, I probably had like 50 people audition, and every person I'd hit up on Instagram would think I was like some weirdo being like, hey, can you send me a self-tape of you maybe doing this monologue? Like, it just was kind of a disaster, but she was the only person who really brought that sass that the character has. And
yeah, that's a good
she
word.
just kind of hit it, and her chemistry with Jordan Wisely, who plays Jake, was really great. And it was, I don't know, it was something that was really cool when we put them two together. And we just, we only got one day of rehearsal because she was from Chicago, and we kind of rewrote some stuff in the script of just them riffing on each other, because it was really great. So that's how we found her. And, I just wanted to do a really honest portrayal of someone who's dealing with like internalized ableism, who doesn't want to identify as disabled, who thinks they're maybe better than disabled people. And, this guy comes along and he's like very cute, very charming. And she's like, absolutely not, because you have this hand and I don't want to be associated with someone who's different. So it's kind of it's a character study, someone who's going through it and rejecting other people because she's actually rejecting herself and hasn't came to terms with it, which mirrors some of my journey. So I just was really honest and like, wrote the thing that I was kind of afraid to write. And the reaction has been really good, especially from the disabled community, because I'm now on the other side of it, where I'm involved and, very open and everything, but getting there was a whole journey.
Yeah, I've read your bio, so I know a little bit about, the background that you've let out. But one of the things that I think you touched on a little bit first was their chemistry together. Because I think one of the things that this movie kind of like does is that, like, we watch the entire thing and we really get where she's coming from. Like, I mean, I don't think we can understand it, people that don't have anything going, issues with that. But it's very easy to just kind of like, you can see she plays so well on her eye, through her eyes and her looks, this level of kind of like complete exasperation, and everybody just all the time sort of just looking at you differently. But when she gets to meet the guy, like, I'm not gonna lie, like we all want them to get together. Like, so I want you to make this a TV series where they have to just spend like seasons and seasons not hooking up.
Right, exactly. I know, I always say at the end, maybe when she's in the elevator, she goes back up to the roof. That's what a lot of people are like, but they should be together because they have good chemistry, and even though she's rejecting it. But I wanted to do something that was just really small character arc, because you don't have that big of a, journey in 13, 15 minutes or something. So just kept it small.
Yeah, no, and it ends perfectly. Like, I no means do I want her to go back out there, because my dream is that after it's over, the best shorts to me are always ones that you were like, after it's over, I'm playing out more of movies in my head.
Right.
Like, so
Right.
that's why I'm always I always tell
it.
people like, oh, they're like, oh, I don't know how to end my shirt. And I was like, great, don't have an ending. It's better. If you can nail not having an ending, don't have one.
Right.
Well, and I think that the egg throw at the girl is the best ending that it could have.
That's catharsis.
Perfect.
Working on it.
Yeah, and that's, it's that thing where no matter as much as you get over it, there's still the world kind of passing these judgments or comments or all these microaggressions that are always going to be there, and sometimes you just want to lash out. So
well, Diana, let me move forward to you, because your film walks this very, very fine line between having moments in it that are darkly funny, but they're none of the scenario in this film at all is even remotely humorous. Like, it's sort of this idea of dealing. We talked about it after it was over, and I'm sure Kat will have more to say than me, but this idea of why on earth anyone continues in the dating pool. Like, like, so I guess what I'd like is I'd actually just kind of open this up to you and have you talk about your journey with this movie, especially now having learned that you've never made a movie before.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. A friend of mine who's also a writer director kind of encouraged me to start writing. And so when I wrote it, I really didn't have any intention on making it, which is why there's 7,000 locations and people and so many things happening. And I was just yeah, cool. I'm just going to write, a lot of it's based on personal experience and just kind of cathartically get it out there. And then he was like, okay, cool. So yeah, let's make it now. And I was like, no, thank you. It was kind of him pushing me the whole way, and getting fundraising for it. I'm is my biggest nightmare. And casting was also every aspect of it was such a learning experience for me. And I have a background in art department, so I've been on set a lot, but just not in a sense of having to tell everybody what to do or know every department. It's really just been art department. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was kind of trying to show almost an evolution of someone being so sweet or naive kind of in the beginning, and how all these different experiences that women often go through can kind of turn you into a different person, which maybe isn't a bad person, but is a little bit more hardened, I guess.
Yeah. Kat, do you have any questions specifically on this one?
No specific questions, but I really enjoyed the movie and how darkly comedic it was, because even in the darkest moments, it's there is some sort of comedic moment that happens, and that's, I think, true to life, because when things are awful, it's easy to just make a joke and try to shake it off and go about your day. So I really appreciated that aspect of all of these different portraits as far as it goes.
Yeah, I really thought it was a comedy for the longest time. I was yeah, it's a comedy. My friend's that's not a comedy. And I was oh, okay.
It's a dark comedy.
I mean, we all
tones to it.
I think all of us just took a specific note. I know that I stood up and just kind of walked away from the computer when she delivers the line about I guess we're engaged now, or the variable on that of line was enough to make me kind of pause the movie. I need a moment, because one, I can't believe that this line just got delivered as matter-of-factly as it did, but also as kind of the most gut punch line ever.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah, that was a brilliant, darkly comedic moment because it's so traumatic, but then having that line dropped, it was just like, this is shaking it off.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
A little of that human defense mechanism where if you hurt, you do something, hurt yourself, and you just make a joke about it to kind of shake off.
Definitely, yeah. Story of my life.
Oof. Well, I mean, this movie, it's so good. I mean, I'm gonna sound redundant when I say that about all of these films, but it's a hell of a movie. So congratulations, especially on your first run.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm coming to Florida. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Andrew, man, talk about intense. Like this movie, we've gone through a lot of shit in the last, several years, and obviously last year is aggressive, issues with what's going on in police force. And this movie is so viscerally upsetting, I think, from an audience standpoint, because I feel like it is the perfect example of why, we see militarized police or desensitivity amongst police cadets and people who get out into the field. So I'd like to know what your experiences were that brought this movie to life.
I don't have any direct experience with either the police or the military. It was just an interest that I had in sort of like the kind of the rituals behind the scene of military and police training. I think the first image that came into my mind was that day that we all know that police have where they get sprayed with a mace.
Yeah.
And, from there, I started researching more and more of the training methods. And they do some pretty bizarre stuff. But then I just thought, dare I make a movie where there's really just almost like no narrative whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's just a simple kind of chain of watching this kind of group of people all share like a similar event, a similar trauma. And then in the very end, one of the characters' trauma is just begun to happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't have any specific background. I will say that, it was a little bit like, the acorn that grew the mighty oak, where like, as I got on, I could do research, I could look things up. I read a lot of articles, and also too, the actors in the film were, when I was casting, I did not want a lot of people with military or police experience, because I think I was a little scared that I was gonna piss one of them off or several and have like half the cast walk out. So, I was very careful, but then once I got on set, I realized that like, oh, half of these guys used to be police or military. They just didn't mention it.
Yeah.
But that ended up being like a real kind of benefit because they brought a lot of experience to the table. And, sure enough, my anxiety was unfounded. They were very supportive and very kind of cool about the whole thing. And occasionally they were even just like, yeah, it's exactly how it is.
Really?
Yeah. So they brought a lot to the stage.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the fact that the film doesn't necessarily have a straight narrative arc or through line on it, but we talk about it being, Hell Day. I just think what the movie does is that you just are immediately thrown into that world. And so the audience essentially is like a de facto recruit at that point. Like you're being put through this just as much as they are, which makes the film, like I said, it is physically, it is a rough movie to watch. It is assaulting to a degree. And the editing on it is actually spectacular as well. Like that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, maybe your editor, and putting that vision of, the beginning to the end through this, because you have these tiny little moments of peace in there too, which just like, thank God, to be honest with you, like I think we need them as much as the participants in this are. But let me talk a little bit about the editing.
Yeah. Well, you're looking at the editor, so I can
Nice job.
Should have researched that. I would look so
At the end of
stupid.
the day, except for a few things, most of it was just kind of stringing it together like it was written, with a few strange juxtapositions, just to sort of things that maybe didn't work the same way they were written as they did as they were filmed. But it was probably one of the easier editing jobs I've ever had. Yeah, the whole idea that the whole idea of the coda with the the basketball games, because I wanted to I definitely wanted to give the audience a little bit of a release, like a moment off from the onslaught or the theater of pain that the film kind of tends to be. But it was also kind of trying to demonstrate the the camaraderie between the cadets, and really kind of give you the feel that, or make you settle in and feel like all these people were on equal footing, until eventually kind of the rug is drug out from underneath them. So yeah, I'm glad you kind of recognize some of those spots as intentional, moments where the audience could take a breath, and the cadets could take a breath, and kind of, everything. Yeah, the film is supposed to really kind of involve the audience and make them a cadet, essentially.
Yeah.
Did you always intend to kind of focus on the female cadet and tell it more from her perspective?
Yeah, I did. As I began to research the film, I realized 15 minutes of watching cadets get brutalized alone is not a movie. And then in my research, I started noticing a lot of these, a lot of documentation and articles about lawsuits that came up against police academies or police forces, mostly about, harassment, some sexual harassment, but mostly it was the type of harassment where it was the gist of it was we don't want you here, you don't belong here, and we can't tell you that, but we can most certainly make things as uncomfortable for you as possible. And 99% of the time it was perpetrated against female cadets. So it's a really common thing, and it sort of began to make me think that this would be an interesting through line for the film, and something that a lot of people don't think about that much, because it's such a closed society that you really don't get to peek into it too much. But it's common.
All right, well,
Not surprised.
Matthew, Kat, do you have anything else you kind of want to directly ask anyone, or do you want to open it up?
Yeah, we can open it up, I think. I mean,
Kat, you sure?
Yes, sounds good. I would just ramble through stuff, so it's better just to open it up.
We'll interject, yeah, so this is a free form, you can just throw your mute off, talk over each other, like Zoom works perfectly for. But yeah, don't feel shy. Feel free to ask each other anything you want to know about your questions and or about your films.
Ashley, I do have a question for you. I wanted to know, working with people that had those kinds of physical challenges, how much of the script was derived from just talking to them about the kinds of things that they have to deal with, or the looks that they get, or the lingo that they talk?
Right. Yeah. So I was born with a disability. I have a rare bone disease, and it's not one limb like was in the script. So I kind of took it from my own perspective of things that have happened to me. And then when we found the actor, I kind of had this idea of one arm, the title single, I was like, that would work really well. And with visually being able to hide it at certain points, I really kind of like playing with when you notice that someone has a disability, when you don't, and that idea. And so when we found Delaney, me and her just had a big script session just to make sure everything was accurate. And, the interesting thing with disabilities, there are very small nuances of are you able to do this thing, or do you feel more comfortable doing this? And, just really the specificities, and asking is the best thing you can do. So you're not assuming. And, I've actually a bunch of other projects that I've been working on that has really been the approach. And one right now I'm working with a girl who has a very specific disability. And, I just always, we have a texting conversation where I just hit her up and say hey, is this accurate? You know, and what I've been realizing is a lot of places are really wanting to do stories about disability, and it's amazing. You know, a lot of big studios, and it's great, but they need people with disabilities to actually either consult. I've done that for a couple places like Disney, especially on their kids programming, because what people think they know is way different than someone who's actually living it. And it's easy to go into like inspiration porn, or, you know, get a little like cute with the disability, or treat the person not as a person. And that's really what's been amazing, is like people now opening the door going, we do want to have someone who actually has a disability either on our writing team, or, you know, it's really great that like the authenticity is wanting to be there from these studios. And it's like I always say, like, it's a great time in history to be a female filmmaker and someone who has a disability, because people are like listening. So I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, you touched Max, you mentioned it about when to reveal. Like, we should talk for just a second about how badass the reveal shot actually is of her arm, because it's like gangster movie level badass.
Yeah, I originally had like DMX, it was something like DMX or like some crazy rap music in mind, and I like showed the cinematographer. I was like, I have this vision, she's walking out just a badass, like doesn't give a fuck, you know. Like that's what I wanted, because I feel like with disability representation, even like you Google disability, you look at the images, it's like people on mountains, very cute, very bad graphics. I'm like, I want something that's like sassy and bold and you know, kind of in your face. And that is something that I never see with disability content. It's starting to come out, but you know, I think that's also why I probably had so many issues identifying with being disabled and like the community, because I was like, it's just this thing in this box, which was my ableism, thinking like all disabled people are the same, which is what happens in the movie too. So it kind of, you know, I really wanted it to always have this like bold, you know, forward personality, which can also be polarizing. I mean, there's some people who are like, I don't like her at all, which is really interesting. You know, she's a very polarizing character.
Oh, she's the best. I want to hang out with her every day.
The real Delaney's amazing too. And I mean, she's not as, you know, she's not as sassy and a little can be, you know, have that bite, but Delaney's awesome.
Awesome. How about anybody else? Questions for each other? Yeah. Okay, well, that's I guess before we wrap it up, I guess what I'd like to know from everybody is what you guys are currently working on, and if you don't know, there's nothing that you've got in development, you know, maybe just a little bit about, you know, being a filmmaker. Like, we get a lot of film school students watching these, especially in Central Florida, where we have a lot of film schools, and you know, some words of wisdom, maybe something like that. So Trish, I'll start with you.
What am I working on?
Yeah.
Well, we're writing the feature right now that's kind of in conversation with the short, but I wouldn't say is like an extension. So that's been really great. I'm directing another short that we actually ended up shooting in December, just to kind of keep working, you know what I mean? And like, I mean, as far as like any students out there, I would, you know what, just make your movie. Is like, I mean, it's just the lamest but the most honest and best advice I've ever gotten. And don't wait for anybody. Don't like wait for anybody, because no one cares but you. So go do it.
Okay, well, I'll jump over to Diana on that one, since she was kind of forced into making her movie too a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna be directing my second short in like 2 weeks, basically like right before Florida. And I'm writing a pilot, and yeah, I mean, kind of the same as Trish, like if you want to do it, you kind of just have to do it and just keep going. And it's been cool, like being able to help just even friends jumpstart, you know, what they want to do in the film industry as a result of doing this. But just kind of got to do it if you want to do it.
Okay. And Andrew, how about you? What you working on?
So as soon as this is over, I'm going to spin my chair 180 degrees and go right back to writing a screenplay that I'm working on.
Good.
Aside from that, I'm just trying to kind of balance the writing working and raising children. So yeah, it's just so my advice to film students is I would say that the best thing I've heard today is just make it. Just go ahead and make your film. Like, on any level, if you've got $1 million to make it, great. If you don't have any money, then make your idea mold in and fit. So yeah, that's what I've always done. I've just made my own stuff. I've never written anything thinking like, oh man, I want to sell this, or like, give this to someone else. If I came to the conclusion a while ago, if you want to get it done, more than likely you'll have to, do it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Max, Julie?
So hard work. The short was really a proof of concept for a bigger series.
Okay.
So right now we're finishing up the show Bible on that, and there's a half-hour pilot version of that I just finished, and our goal is to make it.
Yes.
Well, I can definitely see it translate.
Yeah.
So, all right. So one thing I have to ask you guys before I come down to Ashley and wrap this thing up is your credit sequence, closing credit sequence is way raunchy.
Yeah.
Like we actually have concerns about it.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to do something in the end. On all of my movies, I like making very flashy, wild credit sequences, especially on shorts. I think it's very funny to, like, I just finished a short it's 27 minutes long, and the credit sequence is like, the end titles are like 4.5 minutes. I just think it's funny to do that. It's a little bit obnoxious, and so the end credits are quite explicit, especially if you press pause, like they're very graphic.
We
cool. One of the it's a movie about porn, and the short itself is like very wholesome. There's not any nudity, so I wanted to make sure that we sort of stayed true to the backdrop and at least have something in there. Don't be worried. It's okay. If you blink.
I'm not worried. I am not out worried. If you see the shit I've programmed, I'm not worried.
Anything goes in for it. It's fine. A little nudity.
And if it makes you feel better, Tim, my grandmother is my +1 for this film festival.
Yes.
And she's seen it a million times, and she's okay with it. So let that be your barometer.
My mom saw it, and she's not okay with it, but that's okay.
I just want to say that I can't remember the last time, maybe if ever, I've actually had to give someone props for their credit sequence. So Ashley, tell us a little. What's going
first
on?
of all, my grandma is also attending in person in Florida, so that end title sequence. There's quite a few things that have been happening. There's a TV show in the works that kind of isn't a direct spin-off of Single, but it deals with the world of dating and disability. So that's what's happening now. And I'm also shooting another project for Paul Feig does like a female director program. And so
nice.
Another short for that, which is really fun. And it's like a coming of age high school story. And I found a girl who's really exciting and interesting. And, I would echo what everyone else was saying about just make your thing. My big advice, and I don't know if Diana would agree with this, but I always think someone should make their first short without doing a big crowdfunding thing. Like, see if you like it, see if you, can do it. I made my first short for like $700. I saved money. It's like a 5 to 6 minute short, but it really just gives you that place to make mistakes without going really hard and making the big mistakes on, bigger budget things. And then I raised crowdfunding for my next 2 shorts, which was like the worst experience, but the best experience. And I think it's even landed, it's connected me to jobs because you're letting everyone know what you want to do, so that's kind of my advice, but definitely just like make something, and even to know if you like directing or not. I think it's important to know if you like the process. So
you guys, once again, I just can't thank you enough. These films are absolutely incredible. I really appreciate you joining us.
I just had some advice for the film students too. you watch Back to the Future. I don't know when the last time you guys watched Back to the Future was, but it's a very, very good movie and inspiring. And Max looks like Michael J. Fox.
I literally think we watched Back to the Future like 3 months ago.
I just showed 1 through 3 to my kids recently, so and they loved it. So
I think that USC still teaches it as the perfect screenplay. Like for
Whoa.
The perfect screenplay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, you guys have all been absolutely incredible. I can't thank you enough for your time. A few of you will be here in person very soon. Jesus, that worries me. But I'm really excited about it. I'm going to try to get some sleep before then. To the audience that watched through this, thank you so much for joining us, supporting these filmmakers. Remember, these are all eligible for the Audience Award. So if you haven't voted for them already, make sure to vote for them. And tell your friends, because this program will be up online for about a week before we play it in the theater. And then we'll play all the way till the end of the festival. So there's a lot of opportunity. If you loved it so much, come out, maybe meet these people in person. But we really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.